So, Nikhil, based on what Neeta and Masuma have been saying, how do you let's step back a bit and look at the big picture out here. From what they're saying, communication is going to only get more complex. It's not only more complex, it's nuanced and linked to global trends like never before. For example, disclosure of your vaccine status.
Yeah.
Every government around the world is dealing with that. What is the right approach for that? So I'd like to just pull back and get from you. What do you see as the key consumer trends in technology?
So I
Over to
think the key consumer tech in terms of technology is, first of all, I'll talk about how me and my team manage, because we were supposed to be working, because I am a content creator. I need my team, my camera team, my editing team to be sitting with me while we are shooting and editing and all. When during the lockdown we really couldn't do that. So the switch for us was like, start going back to self shooting stuff and editing it and then posting it. And then these platforms coming up that let you post like a 30-second, 60-second videos, which is like consumers also were like really liking the fast content they could consume, the likes of TikToks and Instagram reels. And this quick transition that happened, because when I started, my whole philosophy of starting was to use long form articles. I used to love writing 10 to 15,000 words articles for reviews and all. And then one fine day when YouTube came around, people were like, why do I have to read so much? Can you do a 5 minutes video? And that 5 minute video is now gone down to 30 seconds. People want information in 30 seconds. It has been a challenge. And if you don't do it, you perish. You have to move on with the trends. So if I'm not, yesterday I did a 30 minutes Instagram live. And right after that, I have to do a 30 seconds reel also, because, consumers are different. People want to watch, some people want to watch a 30-second video. Some want to like really enjoy a good long conversation like we're having right now. So we have to adapt, and you have to really work what consumers are looking at, in terms of, I never thought I'll be getting Slack or a platform there we can, synchronize as a team. I thought we'll just do WhatsApp communication and, iMessage communication and talk to each other. Then moving on to Slack and, having discussions over there. So it's for everybody. It's maybe I'm not as like, I'm just 10-member team, but still we had to use those tools, and we had to switch to, online calls, and, just to keep the tempo off of the team watching Netflix together, and, listening to music together, so that they don't feel it's just work we're talking about. So there's so many little things you have to deal with, making sure you're sending across pizzas to them and not making them feel it's just work now. And because we used to chill at office, so that should not be the case, right? So, that's how, not just work together, but entertainment together, eating food together, and, having live Zoom calls while eating. I'm sure that was not the right thing to do, eating bandwidth, but, you know, while eating pizza using Zoom calls, so that we are interacting with each other, having discussions with each other. So, and interestingly, I had an opportunity to meet the Truecaller team today in the morning. Interesting insight they shared with me that during the first and second lockdowns, the spam calls reduced, like the contact centers were shut and everything was shut. And right after the waves hit and they ended, they started seeing 5 million downloads a day, because people were getting so many spam calls. People were getting, really getting calls and SMSs, right? And there were a lot of things that only Truecaller could help them with, tell them it's a spam call. It could be something that you should not give information about. And all those criminal offenses again started, people taking away your OTP information and whatnot. So how they really worked on it, and they improved their SMS feature with it, filters, and tells you the amount also, that this OTP is for this amount, and making sure that this is highlighted and not lost in the text. And how they worked on it just over like 10, 15 days. In 15 days, the tech team really worked on it, and how this changed. And it's not just about one app. A lot of these platforms, these apps are really working. I never thought that I would take any subscription other than, Netflix and Amazon Prime. But then I ended up taking each, because I have to watch cricket on Sony Live, or sometimes it's on Hotstar watching the Olympics. So these are the consumer trends that I feel that now everybody is taking all the OTT platform subscription possible. We're getting more of, these medical devices. This is something that I couldn't show, but this is a UV wand, which, if you don't want to keep sanitizing everything, and there's things that you can't really sanitize every time. This is a UV wand which you just switch on, and this UV lights kills COVID in 30 seconds. I mean, such devices I never thought I'll invest in. So this is something that consumers have started realizing that you need to get these, and these are the trends that I personally feel that are there.
Nikhil, can you just hold up that wand? I just want to take a screenshot.
Sure.
And if you can switch, yeah, I love those.
UV lights.
Cool. So thank you for that. I'm going to just launch, the poll on the takeaways from the medtech on from the takeaways from the medtech discussion that we've had. Sorry, it's a little difficult to talk and launch the poll at the same time. So here we go. Uh, so um, so okay, the poll is, I think, up on the screen. So please do share your views. We have a question, Masuma, for you. Gunjan, would you like to ask the question yourself? If you would, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hi, sure. Hi. Hello, everyone. Okay, I'm trying to switch the camera on while on a panel discussion on technology. But yeah, okay, you see here it is. So, I really feel that any technology solution that is put in place has to also keep in mind and consider whether it is going to increase or decrease the burden on the caregiver. Of course, there are two types of caregivers. There are the professional ones and the ones at home. But looking from the professional health workers' perspective, could you expand on their perspective? Like, are these caregivers really clamoring for more digital, or are they like, more like passive recipients of this change?
So thanks, Kunjan, for that question. So, when you talk about medtech, I mean, I'm talking from a medtech perspective. When medtech companies come up with innovations or technologies, it's not something that somebody's just put together in a lab and then they just start kind of promoting it. You actually have a lot of data that goes at the back end, understanding the trend, understanding the disease burden, understanding how actually something can be sorted out or made easier. And then you also have the whole HCP community which comes together to say that, okay, this could be an ask. And that's how medtech companies really invest money into innovations and technology development. So when it comes to, while you're right, at the end of the day, a technology solution should be something that should decrease the burden and also make it easier for somebody to to reach out at the right time when the care is needed. So when it comes to digital capabilities in medtech, it's a two-pronged approach. Yes, there is an ask at some point of time, and at many point of time, you actually do a research already, build up a technology, and then obviously then bring it out in the market. So I see it two ways. I'm again going to come back to a juvenile diabetes or a type 1 diabetes. What would you ideally see in a type 1 diabetes? You take a syringe and you have, and on a daily basis, somebody putting in insulin. Now, imagine if you have a simpler technology, which is more like a pump, and it knows that your glucose is going down, and then at that point of time, it is a boon for sure for somebody who has gone through years of those syringe pokes, right? So I see this as two sides. One is obviously when an innovation is developed from medtech side, it's a lot of research and ask that has gone behind before a technology is put into, or a company puts stuff into R&D. And then the other side is also that many a times, as I said, people are getting aware. They do go ask HCPs, is there an easier way? Is there something else I can do which can be easier? And I think with digital capabilities increasing, a lot of people do ask that. So I see it both ways. I hope that answers your question, Gunjan.
Yes, thank you, Masuma.
So that is absolutely a fantastic question, Gunjan. There's another question. Shubhrit, would you like to ask yourself? It's much more fun if people ask themselves.
Hey, I'm sorry, my network is really choppy, which is why I'm typing the questions in. I tried a few times, but it keeps disconnecting.
No problem. Go ahead while we have you online. So go ahead. Okay, I think she's dropped out again. So I'll just ask a question for her. So the question is for both, I think, Neeta and as well as for Masuma, that what role are micro influencers playing, in communication post COVID, especially when it comes to health and medical urgencies. Because I think we saw a lot of that during the second wave of COVID, when influencers were sharing information about, oxygen availability, beds, etc. So what is the role of micro influencers? I'd like all three of you to answer. Who would like to go first?
I will take this first,
Okay,
actually, because
good.
I'll kind of go the simpler way out. Because I'll tell you what, with medtech, you really can't just go out and just talk about, oh, this is a device, you should use it, for this, because you're talking about life, right? So when it comes to medtech, actually, with the kind of regulatory system you work in, uh, even a patient or an HCP testimonial goes through umpteen amount of regulatory and legal and compliance approvals before it is out there. So if I look at a micro influencer for medtech perspective, I think it's a long, long, long way ahead, because I don't see that coming in with the kind of, and also the regulatory environment is getting more tighter, for med devices also. So I think the med devices segment, I don't see that happening soon, except for the fact that if I have a patient who has seen a result and they come out on their own and speak about it, then definitely, that does happen, and we do use that extensively. So the patient testimonials is one of our biggest tool to talk about how a technology is shaping lives or helping people. But again, with the whole environment of regulatory, whenever we need to do this, it's really a long drawn process, for something like this. But I wouldn't say it's not there. It's there. But yes, it's not so easy in medtech.
That's great insight, Masuma. Neeta, can I bring you in? Not, of course, on the medtech, but overall on the use of micro influencers.
Well, as Masuma said that, certainly medtech, they have to look at very, very robust media and right platforms. In terms of technology, lifestyle, mommy bloggers and all, we could see a lot of new talent coming in, and they are talking about the products. But I personally feel that there is a lot of, mushrooming of micro influencers, and for FMCG products, probably it's more simpler. I'm picking up a shampoo or a soap and I'm saying that please use it. But when you talk about technology also or a product, so because Nikhil is here and I'm sure he would agree with me that when you become a tech influencer, you spend a considerable time understanding the technology and talking about it. And the brand also has a certain trust with that kind of influencer, because nobody wants to give a wrong message. So with the micro influencers, some of them are really good, and their content is niche, and the brand wants to get associated. But it has to be very, very content specific, because as a brand manager, you just can't go that I have to deliver X number of influencer reviews. But the content is the king, I would say, and one has to pick up those influencers also very, very carefully.
Thank you, Neeta. I think that's a great insight. I've seen in some of these mommy groups that the admins are becoming tighter. They are like encouraging members, do not recommend things, especially medical advice, don't give it. And even items of use like shampoo, when they spot that more than 2 or 3 people are mentioning the same shampoo, and I'm not going to mention that specific brand, but it gets a lot of recommendations. So then admins, I've noticed, are more vigilant than ever before. And that's something new. I didn't see that last year so much. So, especially around COVID, there are a lot of questions. I have this problem. I have that problem. Could it be COVID? Should I take the vaccine? Should I not take the vaccine? So at least I've noticed that admins are, clamping down on such, on responding to such questions.
No, you're right. You're right.
It's nice to actually get Shubhrit's point of view, because she herself is an influencer and a mommy influencer at that.
I'll come in here for 2 minutes. I'm afraid if my video comes on, I'll lose network. So I'm just going to try and come to the most network friendly corner of my house.
Welcome.
But no, I do feel that the influence in the mom, even the mom bloggers do not have your followings of 100,000 or a million or, a lakh and all of that. The influence is really high because when they started off, when in 2017 the niche kind of took off, the new mom and the mother segment that followed them, you kind of became friends with your followers, and it's kind of become a community of sorts, where even like my child has a diaper rash will come on a DM and say, "Main kya karu?" you know so it becomes like there's a lot of everyday chit chat that happens on DMs, not just comments, in terms of when someone's having a baby. Like for my own self, I had my second daughter 20 months ago, and most of her stuff, her cot, her stroller, her swing, everything, when we were shifting houses in January, February this year, has actually been passed on to real followers who were pregnant and expecting. That's the kind of relationship that you end up building, that it's actually gotten couriered to them at no cost, because I was anyhow going to give it to friends, but most of my friends are done having babies, so it went to my followers. But because of that, I feel there's a huge personal responsibility that comes attached to it, which I would say majority of the blogging community there does have. But at the same time, like you mentioned that somewhere admins have to crack down on the WhatsApp group, because these WhatsApp groups are also very active, that not everything is going just because it's sponsored and you're actually recommending stuff that you have tried, tested, and accordingly has worked for you. But yeah, the segment is getting a lot of attention, and the influence in the segment, regardless of the lower number of followings, is extremely high.
Thank you, Shubhrit, for your views, and it's been really interesting getting an actual influencer to share their views. So I'm just going to share the results of the poll now. So for MedTech at home, the biggest takeaways people have had is that it empowers the patient. I think we were all expecting that. And the second is that it'll push greater access to MedTech. Uh, Reducing burden on the health system, somehow our audience is not very convinced that that is something which will happen. I guess given our entire system, I think that's probably also a response we could have expected. So we are going to wind up now. We've been chatting for a nice long time. I'd like one takeaway each from all three members of our panel, and talk about one learning that they have had about consumer behavior and how to communicate with them post COVID. I'll start with Neeta, then Masuma, and then Nikhil.
I think
Neeta?
the key learning for the brand has been, as I shared earlier, health and hygiene, because we believe that that's not a fad, and that's going to stay with us for a very, very long time. Now people are becoming more conscious, and they are not taking their health for granted, and they are looking for technology appliances solutions which can further enhance it. And as a brand, it's our responsibility that how do we make this combination of great technology and at the same time communicate it in a fun way to consumer.
Thank you. Masuma?
Yeah, I think the key learning during the whole COVID period has been that how important it is that the public-private work together in this whole healthcare space, because the accessibility is such an important topic, and I think it's a three-pronged thing. Accessibility, reach, and also availability. These are three important aspects that you need to look at, and it is not just one company or one person can do it. I think healthcare is something where you really need a ecosystem to be created in this country, and large corporates have a responsibility on themselves to really build that environment along with the other stakeholders.
Thank you. A three-pronged approach is the need of the hour for MedTech. I'll give the final word to Nikhil. Nikhil, what is your takeaway from writing and learning about what's happening in the technology area post-COVID?
I think technology has catapulted
This is like the worst time for technology not to work.
Yeah, I think we've
10 years ago. Bad what we're doing nowadays, because the kind of connect. Could you hear me?
No, I'm afraid not. I think you'll have to take your answer again.
That's why we were joking that the technology stopped working right at the time when the keywords were coming in.
I think the one thing which I had to
So
say was at a time like this is that, connectivity is always an issue. While technology is the basis, connectivity is something which we have faced, right from the start of the pandemic. The amount of,
correct.
how many, the number of devices increased, the number of people using,
Absolutely.
the network from home. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just saying that, nowadays you have virtual reality headset that can take you places. You have augmented reality that let you experience products. There are so many companies that, even car companies are giving you an augmented reality of how the car would look and feel from inside and outside. Smartphone companies are letting you try to hold the device in augmented reality and understand how it feels or how it is, the dimensions are. So these would have been really impossible 10 years ago. If we, God forbid, if we had to go through a pandemic 10 years ago, without the data connectivity, without the Zoom calls, I mean, even if we created a software that could do video calls, we already had Skype and all, but did we have that bandwidth? Did we have that connectivity? So this is what I feel the technology has catapulted and in a way empowered us to, go through this together. I mean, stay connected, do work and do all those financial transaction and do whatnot online. Otherwise, it would have been really, really sad and gloomy for all of us.
That is, I think, a very good note to end on. Yes, we have the pandemic, but we also have technology to see us through. I'd like to go to Subra for closing remarks, and then we are going to end this very interesting discussion. Thank you, all of you who've joined us on this Friday evening, and wishing you a good weekend.